Hey, Maggie.
Hey, what?
What do you call a celebration in Minecraft?
I don't know. What?
A block party. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Engage, a family gaming podcast. This is episode 130, and I am your host, Steven Duetzmann. As always, this is the official video game and board game podcast for EngageFamilyGaming.com. EFG is a website where parents like myself and my co-host come together to give parents and families the information they need to get their family game on. This week, we have a packed house once again. We have myself. As always, we have our new, well, you're not new anymore, our returning co-host for board games, Rob Kalajian of Pawn's Perspective. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
Welcome back. And so we are joined today by the Runaway Parade. It's Runaway Parade Games, right? That's the name of your actual company?
Yeah.
All right.
I kind of like us described as the Runaway Parade.
Runaway, it sounds like it. Doesn't that sound like a tag team from the 80s? It's appropriate because Backlash was last night. So that was a joke that was probably lost on everyone else in the podcast, and that's totally fine. Introduce yourselves, please, my wonderful guests.
I'm Sam Bryant.
I'm Gwen Ruel.
And you guys are a Runaway Parade. No, you're Runaway Parade Games, and you are here to talk about Fire Tower, which is a game I have talked about probably a half a dozen times on various podcasts, and we have written about it because we have a preview and we have a Q&A up on our site, so the links will be in the description. But if you are not driving, feel free to pause the podcast and go listen or go read those things so you know what I'm talking about. The long and short is fans of this podcast should know all about Fire Tower already. However, now we have the honor of having you on so we can talk more about not only the game but its future, because you have a Kickstarter that is not only live but kicking. The kids might even say it was lit. By the way, I'm ready with all sorts of fire puns today. So
we encourage that.
I'm sorry to everyone listening. But before we get too much farther, I do want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We hope the games you've been playing have been great. I've been playing Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, but that's for next week when we talk about video games. Rob has obviously played about 13,000 board games, and he's going to talk about a few of them because I gave him a limit because we have guests. We have company, Rob. You have to behave. And so one thing we do want is to make the podcast as interactive as possible. So please feel free to reach out to us on social media or email me at editor@engagefamilygaming.com with any comments, questions, topic suggestions, improvements, segments, the whole drill. Just send me everything. It's fine. We'll figure it out. So why don't we just get right into it and go around the horn. Sam and Gwen, this is the part where we talk about the games that we have played. Rob, you played this Streets of Rage board game. I mean, I don't know. Just tell me what's up. What is this game that I've been seeing? Everyone wants me to review it, and I know nothing about it.
This is a new game by Ryan Lesser of Rock Band, Guitar Hero fame, and he did the High Heavens board game.
Okay.
So it's Streets of Steel, and it's basically a board game version of a side-scrolling beat-em-up. So think like Streets of Rage and Final Fight, those type of games, and it's really cool because it has a scrolling board. Kind of, you have these street tiles, and they constantly are moving. So enemies can drop off the board, and you can lose health if you drop off the board. But you're basically one of these four, like super roided characters. There's two dudes and two ladies. Their main guy is Average Joe. The other dude is the mayor of the city. He's basically like a Mike Hager ripoff.
Does he fight with a pipe though?
Well, you can get items.
Oh, okay.
So that's what's cool. So every character has like a punch and a kick attribute. So when you attack other enemies, you're rolling your punches and your kicks, but you can pick up items and you can have one item at a time. So it could be like a pipe, or you could pick up like an entire roast chicken, and it basically plays out exactly like these games, and it even has cool quirks like on your first turn you're temporarily invincible. Or if you die, you have to put another quarter in. You get X amount of quarters depending on your difficulty level,
Okay,
and
yeah.
you come back to life, and you are temporarily invincible again, kind of like in the arcades,
I
where you come back in and they give you a minute to like get situated.
I am super down with a board game that gives me invincibility frames. I don't really know how to even express that in words. This just sounds like this was made for me, and I'm an idiot for not having accepted a review copy of it when they offered to send it to me. I'm feeling really dumb, guys. But okay,
it's awesome.
it's good. All right, so it's going on Kickstarter soon. Probably by the time this is live. Is that what I understand?
It's going. So it's going Tuesday, May 9th. Today's the 8th, right?
No. I don't
It's
even know
going
what
live
today's day is. It's going on the night. It's going on a Tuesday.
We're recording this on Monday night. It's going out tomorrow, which is Tuesday.
Fair enough. So by the time this goes live, which will be Friday the 11th, this will be already
funded.
live and hopefully funded. Man, that just sounds cool. What do you think, Sam and Gwen? Are you guys familiar with like the old school brawlers? Were you guys big video gamers back in the day?
I have played a lot of Streets of Rage, and I still do every once in a while.
All right.
I have like a free app that I'll throw on and just beat up on some people that just keep wandering off of the screen on you. So I mean, this definitely appeals to me for sure.
All right.
Just to hit that nostalgia, and it would be cool to see how they kind of transferred the mechanics of the game to a board as well. So it would be cool to see how that is integrated.
It is really always so fun to see the way the video games are being changed into board games and like what that takes and what they choose to make the mechanics for that. So yeah, I would definitely be interested in checking it out.
Well, the good news is there will probably be hopefully they're smart enough to have a cool video that explains all of those mechanics as part of their Kickstarter, because you kind of need one of those, especially if it's something interesting like this. And you know what, Gwen, you made a really good point. It really is interesting to see, as obviously video games are huge, bigger industry than the movies and, the NFL and all that, right? And board games are growing like bananas. It's just crazy how fast board games are exploding. And so it's interesting to see them kind of borrow from each other, because I mean, we're seeing like all sorts of digital versions of board games or digital games kind of borrowing from, some of the board game mechanics. Obviously, every role-playing game ever is stealing from Dungeons and Dragons. So, I mean, there's really only so much we can do there. But it's, it's interesting to see that kind of back and forth. And some of it is with like Centipede and that stuff like that are like legit just trying to take from video games and just adapt them. But it's interesting seeing other kind of video gamey kind of mechanics finding their way into other games. I think it's kind of neat.
It is pretty cool. I really do think there's an overlap as well. We even had some people come up at PAX East, and they approached us when we were at the Unpub booth, and they're like, well, we primarily play video games, and we've never played a board game before, and we'd like to check it out, but we don't know if we'll be able to do it. And I'm always thinking that it's like people who play video games have the same thing. I mean, a lot of video games have an analytical problem, and it's you're solving a puzzle,
yeah,
and you're having to think quickly, which is also something that goes on in board games as well. So I feel like there is a lot of overlap. And
Absolutely.
I feel like in some ways people think that it's a completely different world and it's like hermetically sealed. So it's cool to see people come across that divide and realize the similarities between the two hobbies.
No, I agree with you completely. That is something that I talked to a lot of parents, and the idea of like, well, I don't know if I'll ever be able to play this, these video games, man. The kids, they just do all this stuff, and I can't even fathom learning it. And I'm like, well, you know what? Like, I bet you were really bad at cards once. There's, it's not a direct transference of skills, but like, at the end of the day, a game is a game, and if you can coach t-ball, then there are that is a problem. There's strategy, and it's just learning different rules, and maybe being able to sit still. That's a challenge for me, right? But it's not as crazy different as people assume. I mean, a game like they said, well, who was it? Sid Meier said, "What is a game but a series of meaningful decisions?" I mean, at the end of the day, it's just whether you're holding a controller or waving around a VR controller thing or rolling dice or whatever, it's all kind of the same stuff. We're just doing different things, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And being someone who covers both sides, like on an analytical level, like over the last 4 or 5 years, it is absolutely illuminated that I didn't believe that they were very similar in the beginning, but man, I have learned a great deal, especially meeting designers. As somebody who is way too dumb to make things like that, that would be me. The meeting, independent game developers on both sides, be they board game designers or game devs, video game devs, it's that a lot of you guys think the same way about what you're doing. You're just using different tools. It's so fascinating. It's like a sculptor and a painter. Like, you guys know the same fundamentals. You know what I mean? It's just you're building a different end product. So anyway, we just went into engaged family philosophy for a moment, and that's fine. That's fine. We can nerd out a little bit. So that is Streets of Steel, which will be on Kickstarter. If that sounds like a game you are interested in, and man, it sure as heck sounds like something I am interested in, definitely check it out. I might have to hit them up for a review copy only because I burned my entire Kickstarter budget on Fireball Island. Because I have a problem. Because I have a very, very big problem. And I forgot to tell my wife that I backed it until it was too late. Yikes. Hey, you know what?
Forgot or omitted?
No, I forgot. So here's how it worked. I told her that the Kickstarter was happening, and I told her how much it was to go all in, because I went full Volcar, because I have a problem. And I told her, but apparently I forgot to tell her that I actually was going to back it. Until she noticed that like $165 hopped out of the account, and she was like, "Hey, honey, any want to tell me what, that's a lot of money." And I was like, well, fortunately she's very excited about that game, as are our children, and it's going to be coming just in time for my birthday. So...
You planned this all out very well.
I did the opposite. I didn't plan it well. It just, the chips fell in just the right way that maybe I'll survive until November. Maybe. So have you guys played anything other than Fire Tower recently?
I'm gonna botch the name, but speaking of the video games and board game combination,
yeah.
Do you know how to pronounce the name of the game that we recently played on Steam that was so cool? But it's we met these people at Tabletop Day. Was that a week ago now?
Yeah.
And they had it was like a worker placement real time.
Oh yeah. What was it? We talked about that last week, Rob, or 2 weeks ago.
Sumer? Is that what it's called?
Sumer, right?
Sumer. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not sure. But anyway, it was, it's really, really fun. It does an amazing job of sort of combining mechanics from board games and bringing them to a video game world. And especially just sort of like the way that it's worker placement, but you're racing to get there. So something that's, and you need a controller to do that, but it still was using board game mechanics. So it was really fun. We had a blast with it.
Yeah, what was really great.
For sake of information, not to interrupt, but for the sake of our listeners, it's called Sumer, A Game of Divine Strategy. It's on Switch and Steam, for those of you who are interested. I am very interested.
You can play with up to 4 players, is that right?
Yes.
So we played at Tabletop Day, and then instantly brought it home and had some friends over and played it with the 4 of us. So that was really fun as well.
How'd you guys? So you liked it with 4 players? Have you played with a lower player count yet, or?
We haven't tried the lower player count yet. You did though.
Just when we were getting the demo, it was lower.
Oh, okay.
But I would assume that it would be best with more players, just because you're racing to get to things first.
Sure.
But it seems like it scales well. So.
Yeah, it's fun. It has that same the quality of worker placement games where you're like plotting out your path, and it's cool because there's that little bit of downtime before everyone wakes up from their little beds at the bottom of the monument, and you're figuring out your path. But then you have to make those real time decisions when other people try to stymie you and jump in front of you to take the thing that you wanted. I really, yeah, it's like worker placement with like a good amount of like healthy anxiety as well.
Healthy anxiety, exactly. Good term.
You know what? I think healthy anxiety, and Rob, tell me if I'm wrong. I think healthy anxiety is like the name of the game for worker placement, right? Because like you could have the most awesome, like careful strat planned out for like, okay, I've got these 3 dudes and I'm going to put them down, and you just know that that one of your opponents is going to be that guy, you know? But like you can't account for it, you know what I mean? Like that's how I feel like playing like Lords of Waterdeep or whatever. Like
Yep.
I know that my kid is just going to jump on whatever. He's just going to find the thing that I know I need and just take it, even if he doesn't need it. He's just going to be that. My son is the king of hate drafting. He's a troll. I don't know where he got it from because I am not a troll. I'm a jerk. There is a difference. Slight difference. But, so yeah, Sumer, you know what Andrew Smith of the Family Gamers, and I know you guys know him because you were on his show last week. Yeah, I think it just came out. So he had just talked about this game. So this is 2 board game podcasts out of 3 where this game has come up. I guess I gotta buy it now. It's only like $20 for those of you listening, and if you're looking for a cool multiplayer game, either on Steam or maybe on Switch, if you happen to be one of those folks, this is a very unique game. And I think by nature of the fact that it's kind of more board gamey, I think it might actually be a little bit more, you know, new gamer friendly compared to like Smash Brothers or Brawl Out or, you know, something like that would require a little bit more skill. Wouldn't you guys agree? I'm just looking at videos.
Definitely. Sam is much better at video games than I am, and so we can almost only play, like if we play together, we often play couch co-ops or something like that. It has to be that, you know, we can't be competing because I'll just lose instantly. I don't have a chance.
If I may make a recommendation for a game that you could probably compete at, if you have a Switch, and if you don't, you should get one, to celebrate the victory of your Kickstarter, obviously, is Mario Kart. Because the new Mario Kart actually has like some assists that will make it so you can't screw up as bad.
Oh, that would be good. I could use something like that.
Yeah, there's auto acceleration or auto steering, which you could turn one or both of them on, and they make it so you only have to pay attention to the other one, or really neither. And so my 5-year-old can play reasonably well. So I'm just throwing it out there. That's
pretty cool. So more forgiving than the original, or not the original, but the N64 version, where if you hit a wrong corner, you'd be facing backwards, and then the whole race was over, and then you'd fall off a cliff, and everyone would pass you and lap you 3 times.
Yeah, it's way better than that, because you actually, if you have the auto steering on and try and steer off course, it actually just pushes you right back on. It's really kind of neat. I know we veered off course on the podcast, so I'm going to let the auto steer pull me back in and talk about some more board games. So you guys played Sumer, a game of divine strategy from Studio Wumpus. Just Google it up, folks. And they're from Brooklyn, just like you guys. Aren't you guys from Brooklyn?
Yes, that's why we met. Because we were doing
I get it. Hey, so those of us in the Northeast, we can appreciate that. There's some local folk. So that is. So anybody else play anything? I have one. I just don't want to jump over everybody, being that I'm the host. Rob, what about? You know what, Rob? I want you to talk. Tell me about this Legend of Korra game, because I really want to play it. And I don't have it because IDW and I just haven't been able to connect on it. Tell me about the Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena.
Dude, so it's I was super hyped for the game because as a whole family, we loved Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. My kids still just repeatedly watch them. Every once in a while, they'll just go through the seasons. So when I saw this being kickstarted, I'm like, I don't care if this game is good or not. Like, I need to get it to review it because it's Legend of Korra. So Ross Thompson, IDW, shot me a copy, and it's good. I mean, pro bending was probably like the weakest part of the Legend of Korra, the show, but it just translates so well into a board game. And you've got 2 teams of 3 on the pro bending arena. There's a divider in the middle, and you're taking your turns. You draw 3 cards, and you're playing your 3 cards every turn, which tell you what bender you're moving and what actions you have. And so you're moving left and right. You're shooting elements back and forth. And basically the goal is you want to either knock your opponents off the arena, or if the ref calls the game, you want to be in your opponent's zone or have the most benders on the board. And the way you knock benders off the board is by putting your elemental tokens on spaces that they're on and hoping that they don't negate them before the end of their turn. Because if at the end of your turn you have an opponent's icons or tokens on a character, it's going to bump them back the amount of tokens that are on there. So it's almost like it's like a game of tug of war. And you've got special trick moves, and you have illegal moves that you can use where you roll a referee die, and if you get caught, you get a penalty. And if you get 2 penalties, you can get booted out of the game. And it's really cool. And the base set has the Fire Ferrets, which is Korra, Mako, and Bolin, who are the main characters of the show, and the Wolf Bats, who are kind of the jerky team that you're first introduced to in the show. But the Kickstarter added tons of other teams, which I'm hoping will be released retail soon. And then there's even an expansion that has Amon, who was the main villain of season 1. And there's an episode where he attacks the pro bending arena, and the pro benders are fighting off his equalist forces. So basically, they add that in where Korra, instead of just water bending, can now use her fire bending and her earth bending. She didn't have air bending yet. And you're using your team to fight off these invading forces. So what I've played, it's really good. I played it with my oldest, and he really loved it. The minis are awesome. It's just a really solid game, and I usually I haven't had much luck with licensed games. Like I keep going back to, like, everybody knows I hate Mega Man, the board game. But IDW has had some hits, man, with Ninja Turtles and Legend of Korra. Like, they're solid games, and they've completely taken me by surprise.
As a video game reviewer, I know nothing of the terror that is licensed games. I just don't. I just don't even. Yeah, I'm with you on the bad thing about licensed games. Those listening, if you want to know about some of my experiences, you can listen to older podcasts, or maybe you can look up my review of Turbo, the video game that is based on the Snail movie. Do you guys remember Turbo?
I remember Turbo.
I do remember Turbo.
The one about the snail that, like, gets dropped in nitrous oxide, so that makes him fast. Which is every word I just said is true. And I thought it was going to be a racing game, and it turned out that it was like a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater ripoff, and I was really mad.
Oh my God.
They kind of, it seems like they really dropped the ball on that one then. Because it's a game about racing. It's a movie about racing. The game should be, about racing.
I thought that it was going to be a kart racer, because that made total sense. Oh, we'll just be a bunch of snails racing around stupid tracks, like a burrito shop and all that. Nope. It was a Tony Hawk game, and it was awful at that. So, it was probably the worst review I've ever written. So I don't know anything about bad licensed games. Nope, not at all.
Well, Legend of Korra is an excellent licensed game.
How good? Well, yeah, good, because her licensed video game was pretty terrible also. So this game sounds amazing. Are you guys Avatar fans?
Not particularly, no. But I've dabbled in it.
That's fair. By Avatar, we're not talking like crazy blue people. We're talking about
I know.
All right, good. Listen, I'm just throwing it out there. Some folks get real confused, like the trademark people. That's why our movie was not called that. It was called The Last Airbender, and it was. Well, we don't really talk about it. So
I have no idea what you're talking about. There was never a Last Airbender movie, Steven.
Oh man, I wish that was true. But my wife and I made like a whole thing about that. Was like our first big like date night after we had one of our children.
Ouch. I'm sorry.
It hurt. Talk about killing the mood. Anyway, so it was a rough day. It was a rough day. So anyway, so that's so it's called Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena is the official name. Is it like for sale yet?
I think they're sold out right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
That might explain why maybe that's why he and I aren't really connecting. Let's see. Hold on. I'm on the Amazons. It'll tell me. It exists. Both the main board game and a deluxe edition. Oh, not the deluxe edition. I guess it's available, but it's $150. But there's the regular one and the Amon expansion.
Yeah, I need the Amon expansion.
Okay, well, it's $26.86 on Amazon if you care.
I'm probably gonna get it.
I mean, I'm just saying you can. That's up to you. So that is Legend of Korra, the Pro Bending Arena. I want to talk about Qwirkle Cubes because this is apparently a thing that's been around for a while, and I didn't realize that it existed until like literally 2 days ago, and
Dude,
I'm embarrassed.
Forever.
Yeah, I just all right. So I have been a huge Qwirkle fan since I played it, and I think all four of us have played it at one point or another. I'm a huge fan. I actually met the person who created Qwirkle while I was at New York Toy Fair a couple of years ago, and that was like a huge honor because it's such a cool game. I gushed a little bit. I don't know if you guys could ever imagine me gushing. And like I totally almost lost my cool. It was tough. But now, so that's Qwirkle, and just about everybody listening has heard me talk about Qwirkle a bunch. You know, you're basically reverse engineering a crossword puzzle using, colored colors and shapes and patterns. Super cool game. And the original game, it uses these cool, like, block, square tiles. Very solid. I love just playing with them. Like, I'll just dump them out on the table while I'm chit-chatting with people and just, like, build stuff because they're neat. And they're nice and solid. I just like the pieces. Qwirkle Cubes is that only instead of little square tiles, they are literally 6-sided dice that are all the same color. They're just the 6 different shapes. And it's so simple and such an easy change. Like, obviously they made it with dice, but it never occurred to me that it existed until I saw it sitting on a store shelf, and I lost my mind and bought it, and proceeded to play a whole bunch of it. It's really good. Rob, you've played it, I'm guessing, so you have a copy?
Yes, and I don't think we play regular Qwirkle anymore. We pretty much play Qwirkle Cubes.
So the big difference, correct me if I'm wrong, like because maybe I played it wrong, is with regular Qwirkle, if you are, if you don't have a legal play or if you don't have a play that's optimal, you can put some tiles back basically and get more. In this case, you really just have the opportunity to re-roll your dice and have different pieces, right? More or less?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much exactly like Qwirkle, except you can roll them, and it's like a simple little change, but it adds so much more to the game. And I mean, especially with the kids, because it's a simple game, but now they also get to roll dice.
Yeah,
it's a win. It's a total win.
Yeah, I mean, guys, like when I saw it, I just didn't even know what to do with myself. So for those that have heard of this and are now super interested, here's the good news. It's available on Amazon for like $25, and it is not. I mean, it's not hard to find. So it will likely be at your friendly local game store. Maybe it's worth a look. But it's not going to break the bank. You're looking at a $25 game ish. Comes in a cool little box, so it's not going to take up a lot of space. This is cool. What do you guys think, Sam and Gwen? Does this sound interesting?
It sounds cool. I like the idea of like the enhanced tactile experience of actually being able to roll things and kind of changing your options that way. No, yeah, I looked at a picture of it earlier when you were mentioning it. It looks good on the table as well.
Yes, it does. I love Rob. I love how he throws out like the smart person game designer thing, where he says enhanced tactile, like he's showing off his brains there. That's a
Yeah, but this is also the guy who like eats his fire gems. So
Hey, that's never been confirmed on video with video evidence, at least.
you're not supposed to eat those, man. They're I can't imagine those come out well. Anyway, so so that's Qwirkle Cubes. Man, this is going to be one of those wow, Steve, you stupid games, because I didn't know it existed, and apparently it's been around for a very freaking long time. And I'm embarrassed. But you know what? That's why I have a podcast, because I have no problem just pointing out how dumb I am sometimes. That's why people keep coming back, because they want to hear me make mistakes. So, it's true. It's like half of my audience is just people that want to hear me say stupid stuff. And it's not that hard. So I think that's enough for Around the Horn. We've certainly taken up a lot of Sam and Gwen's time talking about not their game. So why don't we take a break, and then we will come back, and we're going to talk a whole bunch about Fire Tower. How's that sound, everybody?
Sounds good.
good.
All right. We'll be back in a moment, folks. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 130. It is still board game time. I'm still Steven, still here with Rob, and I'm also here with Sam and Gwen, the Runaway Parade games. But now you are forever going to be the Runaway Parade, because it just reminds me of a tag team, and I'm from that corner of the Dork Forest that I like wrestling, so it's shit. You're just gonna have to get used to it. Rob has, begrudgingly. So the first part of our show, we went around the horn and we talked about a whole bunch of games, but now we want to talk about the game of the hour, and that is Fire Tower. See that little rhyme? It was hot. I've literally been planning that specific set of puns and jokes for like a week.
That was a good combo, right?
Pretty
there.
good, right? That was pretty. I was pretty proud of it. So, you guys had a Kickstarter. It went live a couple of weeks ago, right? Literally.
Yeah, I think we're 13 days in, I think, right now.
Yeah, something like that. It says 16 days ago, so to go rather. So 2 weeks. It looks like. And it is wildly successful. You guys have got to be relieved, right? Because you've been working on this for a very long time. I played this game like 2 years ago at a CT Fig.
Yeah, it was a while ago. That's right. Oh my gosh.
No, it's a great feeling, to know that, we got the funding together to be able to make the game and deliver it to everyone who's played it. We've been getting a lot of really heartening messages from people who said something like that. I've been waiting for this game for 2 years. Like, I'm glad you finally got around to getting it out.
Yeah, way to finish your crap, guys.
Took our time. You took
your time. Hey, listen, I think that this is a worthwhile story, right? Because Fire Tower is a cool game, right? Like it's a cool game. I've certainly enjoyed it every time I've played it. But there is something to be said, especially for new designers, that there is value in work, right? Like you guys have been doing the convention circuit in the Northeast and beyond, it sounds like, for this whole 2 years, and you made a lot of connections and you played the game with a lot of people, and I can't imagine that was not valuable, right?
No, the feedback has definitely been invaluable. Just meeting other designers and just other players, and just getting perspectives on things. When you play a game thousands of times, it's easy to kind of parse out what's working and what's not, and how people are reacting to certain things or certain changes. It's that experience has been great, and just getting to meet everyone and in the industry, including you guys, Rob and Steven. I don't know, it's just been great. Just learning about the community and just realizing how strong it is in the area.
I think also for us, going to conventions and having people play our game and enjoy it was a huge, it kept us going. So I feel like every time we sort of lost faith or, didn't know how we were moving forward, we would go to another convention, have a bunch of people like laugh and enjoy our game, and it would remind us how important it was to keep going with it. So,
and I feel the same way on the inverse, right? Anytime I, question what I do, I go to a convention, I meet some cool indie board game developers like you guys, and I say, okay, so this is what I do, which is, I help spread the word on stuff like this and help provide, feedback and hopefully get some people to buy your stuff. I totally understand what you're saying, right? Like that value of going to be part of a community and, being uplifted by, kind of cohabitating in that same space, even for a short amount of time, right? Like I ran into you guys at PAX Unplugged, and I was exhausted when you guys ran into me while I was selling Fireball Island before it existed, right? Because I was working at the Restoration Games booth, because they put me up in a hotel. I really couldn't turn that down. Go figure. In exchange, I had to sell the easiest thing to sell at a convention ever, just signing up for a mailing list to hear about Fireball Island. It was great, but I was exhausted. I was losing my voice, and then you guys came over to show me the prototype of Fire Tower, and it was, that was that boost of energy for me, just knowing like, hey, I've got this awesome product. I've got your baby in my hand, to bring home and play and, work with Rob on some coverage. That kind of energy is something that I think a lot of people that don't necessarily go to conventions or even smaller ones like CT Fig and BFig, they people that don't go because they think it's not their scene or something like that, they're really missing out on some energy. And it's so fun. Just meeting everybody. So I agree. So enough gushing about the board game community at large. Let's get down to brass tacks. Let's talk about Fire Tower. Tell me what this game is about.
Well, Fire Tower, it's a 2 to 4 player competitive forest fire game. And if you've ever played a fire game before, most of them have some kind of cooperative aspect where you're working together to beat back the flames and contain the chaos. But in Fire Tower, your only objectives are 1, to defend your own tower, and 2, to spread the fire from the eternal flame in the center out towards your opponents, breach their tower, burn it down, take their cards, and continue your quest to be the last tower standing in the forest. And it's a game that one of the main mechanics in the game is the wind. It's this unrelenting natural force that's always pushing the fire forward. And at the beginning of every player's turn, they have to expand the fire with one of the fire gems we have in the game. And they have to add it on to the mass of the fire. So it's continually growing, becoming more unmanageable. And then players also have a hand of 5 action cards that allow them to influence events on the board, including altering the direction of the wind and sending it towards their opponents, or adding varying patterns of water and fire to add and remove things, and creating fire breaks for defenses as well.
Gee, you haven't rehearsed that at all over the last couple of years.
I've never said those words before.
That was 100% extemporaneous, no preparation. Wow, that was about as man. I wish I had that just written down for every time I had to explain it over the last couple of years on this show. So here's what I love about this. Rob, tell me, you chime in with some of your opinions too, because I know you reviewed this as well. We've played it together a half dozen times. So I think the big thing that really, kind of grabbed me about this game is kind of that chaotic element. Like this really, because of the fact that every turn the fire gets bigger and the fire does not necessarily go in the direction that you want it to. Sometimes you can, manipulate it a little bit, but in general, it's just kind of going where it wants. It really does feel chaotic. But it's not fast chaotic, right? And I think that that's the part that I really liked about it, because a lot of games that like rely on chaos or, be it video games or other things, it's hard to keep up, right? Like you're very quickly overwhelmed, and that's just kind of how things work. But what's cool about Fire Tower is that chaos is very methodical. It's like, because it's one, sometimes a little bit more people are using action cards, but generally it is a slow build. And like if you don't pay attention, all of a sudden you're kind of overwhelmed and everything's just kind of, the fire's on top of you if you're not paying attention. And I really like that feeling of kind of watching the waves of fire move around and, you know, how things build. And it really makes it so that no two games are the same, because the wind is unrelenting and, you know, more or less random. I really dig it. I really dig your game, guys. But you've known that for 2 years. You know.
So I'm gonna stop and point out here that you already missed a fire pun. You said it was a slow build. When
I should have said it was a slow burn. My bad.
It was a slow burn.
All
right. Hey Steven, you're fired.
I am fired. We don't make your fired jokes on this podcast. I'm just saying, certain things are just straight up off limits. But I am certainly, like I understand. I failed. So
yeah, Rob just took the crown.
Yeah, he took the pun crown for the evening, and that's fine. The belt, it'll be a championship belt. I think we're gonna have to get one of those. I think we actually really do need to get one of those, Rob, because I think that'll be really funny. That'll play well on Insta. So, see, I said Insta like one of the cool kids. That was probably the saddest thing that's happened to me in a couple of weeks. So your game, you've been working on this for, you guys said like 3 years, right? Is that what I'm remembering correctly? Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And
it's been about 3 years, yeah.
So I've asked you guys this before, but I want to hear the story again, and I think some of these folks will probably want to hear it. You guys could have made anything. Why did you make this? And I mean that in the and you guys know I've asked you this before, and so I know largely the answer, but I want it for the benefit of my audience, and I mean it in the most loving way possible. Why did you make Fire Tower? Because you guys are super smart, very talented developers, or designers rather. Why this?
So we've both, been designing games since we were kids, and it was really fun. Once we sort of realized that we were both into board games and we could talk about design, we were talking about it all the time. But one of the things that we really like are, this new wave of, I guess not new anymore, but the wave of cooperative games that have come out, this aspect of playing against the game, right? Everybody's working together to play against some mechanism in the game that is overwhelming and they have to fight it back, right? Like Pandemic or any example of so many cooperative games, great co-ops that have come out recently. And then there's the competitive games where you're playing against each other and there's more, that type of interaction. And we liked both of them. We were trying to come up with something that would be both at the same time. So how do you have something that's cooperative in that you're playing against the game together, and then purely competitive, there's only one winner and you're always thinking about how you and you alone can win the game. So the idea of the fire and the way that it moves, the way that it's the slow burn, as you said before, being able to have that growing so you're playing against the game in that way, but also trying to manipulate it so that you're still beating the other players really intrigued us both.
All right. I like it. So, I mean, everybody knows I liked it. So it's tough for me to express a positive emotion that anybody listening to this podcast has not already heard from me. So I've been talking about this game for a while. So the good news is I'm not alone, because if I was the only person that liked it, probably wouldn't, no disrespect, I wasn't going to be able to fund your game all by myself. So,
why not?
Well, I mean, we are BFFs, but we're not that kind of BFFs. I think my wife would have had something to say about that. That would have also made me an investor and not a backer, which is a vastly different experience. But almost 1,000 people so far have backed this game, and you're basically halfway through your campaign. And so you're in the lull now, I'm sure, but we know it's going to pick up towards the end because that's always how this stuff works. How cool is it to know that there's like 1,000 people that are like, yeah, you know what? I want this.
It's pretty amazing. Gwen keeps rationalizing it to me. She's like, imagine all of those people like standing or being in a room together playing Fire Tower, and it's a it's a really humbling feeling at the same time that it's really thrilling. I don't know. We're just so grateful to the community of people that have come together to help us make this game. From everyone we've met at conventions and, game nights here and there, and people we've never met before who have just signed on to the game after checking it out. We're really grateful to all of that because, we couldn't have made this game without the excitement that people have brought to the campaign.
It's overwhelming to imagine the game being played. I think one of the things that's most thrilling to me is the international backers who have supported us to imagine, this game being spread across the country and then across the world on all the different tables. That's like just a dream come true for me.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I can totally imagine how cool that would be. The first time I noticed that my podcast was being downloaded by someone regularly in the UK, I was like, oh my goodness, this is, it's crazy that like your thoughts are your thoughts, your experience, your hard work being appreciated by someone in another country, another state, let alone another country, right? Like, it's just totally crazy. Another thing that must have been overwhelming for you guys is that this thing funded fast. Right, the sticker is right there on the front. Which, by the way, well played getting that sticker there as quickly as you did. I was there in the Discord while that was getting done. So you guys funded in under 2 hours. So it went live, and then all of a sudden, 2 hours later, you're like, "Wow, this dream is a reality." Tell me that. Give me an idea, and give my listeners an idea what that first couple hours was like. Like, you must have been just constantly hitting refresh. Just tell me how this was all going down. I just want to know.
It was kind of the way I could describe it best. It was like, almost like euphoric paralysis.
Wow.
We could barely move. We had all these plans for where we were going to post it, and we were going to get it up here, and we're going to put this on Facebook, and all our plans just kind of fell apart when we saw the support coming in and the backer numbers going up, and we're kind of looking at each other like, wow, this is amazing, kind of freezing up, almost losing our motor function. It was definitely one of the craziest feelings of my life, for sure, just seeing that. And then finding out, then it was funded, and it was like, now the game is within 2 hours, we knew that we were going to be able to produce the game. And that was really gratifying.
And so, man, euphoric paralysis. That's the name of my funk cover band. Euphoric paralysis. Man, I'm a big fan of that phrase. Someone should actually make a board game named Euphoric Paralysis. You guys should totally write that down and just use that as a theme. I think that would be freaking awesome. So yeah, you know what? I could totally imagine that, right? Like, you have everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? But this was like a happy punch in the face, because like all of a sudden you went from nervous. I'm sure you had data, right? Like, I'm sure you guys had. You're smart people, logical minded, right? The analytical. At least that's what I can tell from our brief meetings over the years. And so I'm sure that you had a pretty good idea that this was going to be okay, right? But this has to have been blowing away some of your expectations.
I think what's funny is that you have the data, and you're able to look at other projects and make projections and see how they're doing things and say, oh, wow, they did this and that really worked for them or whatever. But when it comes to yourself, it just feels like, well, I think, my aunt's going to buy a copy. Like, you just have no clue. Of course, we've done the work, and if we had thought about it, we could have sort of foreseen some of this. Of course, not anything near what ended up happening. But it's weird. You don't look at these things with a clear eye when it's your own project, I think, in the same way.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. When EFG launched however many years ago, I had an idea for what it was going to look like and how the launch was going to happen. Admittedly, not nearly as fast of a burn as Fire Tower, because this thing, you guys, it just went crazy, as I watched it go. Whereas EFG has been a bit of a slow burn, but knowing, like, seeing the people get involved and everything, the comments and the views and everything, I completely understand where you're coming from on this whole, like, you have an idea and you have a plan and you see your competition, quote unquote, and then everything just happens. So it's just super cool. I can't even express how proud I am to see your little baby growing up. Now, we've talked about the game. Let's talk about this game board. So here's what I want, folks. This is your homework. Don't do this while you're driving. I say that a lot because I'm nervous about it. You got to go look at this Kickstarter. So just look up Fire Tower on Kickstarter and look at this board. This board is gorgeous. It was the first thing that grabbed my attention when I saw you guys at CT Fig. It is, the perspective is crazy. Every time I look at it, I catch like this other little detail that I just didn't notice. Like the fact that when you're looking at the board from, it's like you're really, really high up, and it never occurred to me that that's what's actually happening, that you're like actually really high up watching this crazy fire happen. It just never occurred to me, like the sense of elevation. Tell me how you got this board made.
So I'm actually a graphic designer by day, and I was taught graphic design by my father, who's an illustrator and fine artist. So we've worked on a lot of projects together, and this was the first one that we got to work on that was actually one of our projects. So he did all the artwork for Fire Tower. The watercolored style is totally him, and he's brilliant. I love everything he does. You're
not just saying that because it's your dad.
I'm not. I mean, I've been admiring him since I was a kid, but he might, maybe he taught me what he taught me my own aesthetic, right? But I think his work is unbelievable. He actually has a line of I grew up in Vermont, and he has a line of Vermont travel posters that he makes. So a lot of Vermonters are familiar with his work and have seen it around, usually, with maple syrup or red barns or something like that in the background. So this is a different type of project, but it was really, really fun to work on with him, and I think it came out beautifully. I'm really proud of this.
Listen,
so not only do you guys... Oh, sorry, Steven.
No, I was just saying I agree. You go ahead.
I was going to say, so not only do you have this beautifully illustrated board, but I mean, when I saw you guys at CT Fig, it was the gigantic mound of shiny plastic gems that caught my eye. And now what's cool is, and I think I even said this in my preview, like, this isn't a deluxe edition component. Like, anybody who backs Fire Tower gets like a ton of these giant plastic gems. So you've got this beautiful board. And I mean, the board itself is a very dark look to it too. And then you've got these kind of shiny, translucent orange gems, and they really just pop. It's got a great tactile feel to it when you're playing the game, and it just really looks good on the board. And I mean, did you guys always plan on that, or was the original plan like wooden or cardboard tokens? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, it evolved. I mean, the first version we ever had of the game, and we've told people this before, but a giant piece of poster board with little plastic pirate tokens were the pieces, and then that evolved into years ago into a Game Crafter prototype, and we initially had little purple and red winks for the fire tokens and the fire break tokens. And, we brought that to a convention and people enjoyed it, but they said, we wish there was something that was more evocative of fire. Like, we wanted it to feel like this is the fire on the board. And that really set off the search to find that piece. And when we finally located it, we were feeling good about it. And we brought it to the next convention. And the first person walked up and went, "Oh, you got a big pile of fire there." And
nice.
And then I don't know, that kind of was just like, that was a nice affirmation that we had made like the correct choice on what to use to represent it. So it wasn't, that wasn't our initial plan, and that definitely was another one of those things that evolved over the course of conventions, the look of the game.
Well, I also love that in your Kickstarter campaign, those gems are like the the meat of the advertising. You had all these, like you're eating them out of the bowl, and you have all these stop motion animations, which I have to say I absolutely loved. Just even seeing those on the Kickstarter page, it must have taken forever to make those.
Thank you so much, Rob.
I forget how many frames was our how to play video going? Wasn't it something like it was like 4,000 or something?
We really like playing with the gems, so yeah, that made the choices easy.
I also have to say, man, like the when we had because we were lucky enough to be handed a prototype, and I brought it home and I showed my kids, who had actually not had an opportunity to play it up to that point, just by nature of the fact that they hadn't been. Maybe my oldest had seen it, maybe, but like most, my younger two definitely had not seen it. And so we took it out of the box, and while trying to teach them how to play the game, they just couldn't stop messing with the fire. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's fire. You're playing with fire. Don't play with fire. And like my youngest, who was like 5 at the time, actually no, she was 4, was like, but Daddy, it's not hot. And I'm like, but I didn't actually, just don't touch. Just don't touch, because it's distracting. Because they're just because it really does. I don't think people will. I mean, because of the quality of the Kickstarter video, and the gifts that you made, people will kind of get it. But like, you don't really know how much like quote unquote a fire it looks like until you see it moving around on the board. I think it's one of those things that like I didn't quite get it until I was halfway through a game and went, this looks like fire, and I think that's a neat feeling. It's something that you don't really see with a lot of components, right? Like a lot of times components, they are what they are, and these like really. Like, for me, it was just, they looked really cool, and I really liked the pieces, but then when you see them all spread out on the board, you're like, oh, this is legit.
Yeah, well, we really wanted to have the theme melded in a meaningful way, and not just be something that was tacked onto the game. So yeah, that's always been part of it, is that the way the mechanics function is also a way that a fire would naturally grow as well. So thank you for saying that. Yeah, no, we love the gems as well. I mean, during certain conventions when there has been a lull late in the night, the gems are our solace. We're always playing with the pile.
I'm also a big fan of games where you can look at the board and you know exactly what's going on, and you can sort of read the situation right away. So the fire gems really just, they make it very clear very quickly how much trouble you're in when the fire is near your tower, and you can breathe a sigh of relief when it's a little bit further away.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It definitely, like, as they start pushing towards your tower, like, it really does feel that, like, sense of pressure. And I don't know if it's because of the gems, but certainly the game does it. The gems certainly don't hurt. So one thing that we got to talk about, because we played the prototype and have been playing this for a long time, is people who will be getting the final version will be playing the game a little bit differently than we did originally, because we had a spinner. A Chutes and Ladders spinner, whereas now it was switched over to a die. What finally? I remember you guys kind of debating that a little bit in the beginning. What finally pushed you guys over the edge?
Some people we knew who, like, we later, designers we became friends with later, would be like, I really liked your game when we played, but to be honest, when I first walked up, I had like an implicit bias that I wasn't going to like it because it had a spinner. And they're like, and I don't know why. And I know it's kind of unfair to judge a game based on one component. And then when we started telling people at conventions that we were going to switch to a D8, it was generally pretty positive. A few people would be like, I like spinners. They should be utilized more. But I would say the majority of the people like the idea of it turning into a D8 as opposed to a spinner. In a lot of ways, people were adverse to a spinner because they were worried that, people have problems with them. If they're not of the highest quality, they start to malfunction. They stop spinning right. Also, there was the problem that some people thought, what if my friends get good enough with the spinner that they can just get it to land on the wind direction they want. So I don't know. Yeah. Although if I don't know if that's possible, I think I spun that spinner about 25,000 times and still had no ability to control the way it was going.
Well, maybe you just suck. I mean, did you think of that?
It could have been a
I'm just kidding.
defect
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Although that was, you did not hear. No one expected that coming from me. Nobody did. So no, you're right. I actually think spinners are sufficiently random. However, I can also understand, why some folks might be just conditioned to not like them because, Chutes and Ladders isn't really a game. I mean, it's not, but because that means nothing that is in it can ever be part of a real game or something. I liked it because it felt random enough because it is like the wind. Yeah. It's just going to lay where it lays. With that said, I mean, an 8-sided dice, what are you going to do? Like, I think it will do just as well. And you know what? If people want their own spinner, they can make one. It's not that hard.
I think, one of the things that's kind of cool is we actually reached a stretch goal to have the weather vane card. So even though it's not a spinner and you're still using the die, that additional component of having something next to the board that is the weather vane is back in the game. So anybody who really loved the spinner will have that for some solace.
I like it. So this has been around for a while. You guys have played this. Tell me about, did you ever run into a situation where you had to make a change, after just one really weird game where you were like, wow, this just went out of control, we got to change this thing? Did you have a moment where you were playing this game and you had to make a hot fix, right in the middle of it, maybe late in design, or is this something that just slowly evolved?
I would say that the evolution was slow. It was less than just one game where something triggered it, and it was this one anomaly makes us have to alter things. But trends you would see over time. Initially, if both the players on one side, let's say on the western side of the board, they were eliminated, we still allowed the wind to expand in that direction. And the problem was when you had those two players left, they would be content to let the wind stay in that western direction and just kind of bolster their defenses. And they weren't taking the heat from the expansion. It was kind of, still adding to the board, but in a place that wasn't really affecting them. And we thought that kind of eroded the momentum of the game in that sense that the fire is always coming for you. So eventually, now we have it, the towers are no longer active on the side of the board. The wind can no longer spread that way. So it's now there's only two players left, but now you're more confined and it's more likely. I mean, no matter which way the wind is going, it's going to be negatively affecting someone's chances of, surviving and staying in the forest. So definitely changes like that came up over time. And I think it was, if we saw something, if you saw something multiple times, you started to realize that it needed a fix.
I remember in one of our early games, we had a card that could double the wind in that you would play the line every single time. And it was just you would be burned to the ground instantly. And we kept trying to incorporate it in. We're still trying to incorporate it in because we like the idea of the stronger wind, and we might have cracked that one recently, but we had so many different ways of doing that where every single time we play it was I just burned to the ground so fast. Let's try that again.
I guess it is true. There was certain things that changed pretty quick. The first prototype we ever built, when we first had the fire breaks, you could place them adjacent to one another. So you could end up just building this wall, and it would end up becoming this endless fortress that stretched on forever. And me and Gwen battling to make it through little choke points, and then extinguishing it, and then making it stronger. And it would spiral on into a 3-hour game. And we're this is not meant to be 3 hours. This is supposed to be a quick game about a fire spreading. So pretty quickly we decided that new fire breaks placed to the board can not be placed edge adjacent. So I guess there was certain things where that was a specific example where one game definitely changed a rule right away. It was clear that was an issue.
Awesome. Well, I do want to say I'm really glad that I finally got an opportunity to have the two of you guys on my show. We've been kind of talking about this for a while because we certainly have had some fun times playing at conventions, and I wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you guys over some microphones to talk about Fire Tower. So the campaign still, by the time this is posting, there will be about, I think, 11-ish days left. So there will be time, but not so much time that you can just forget about it, folks. So if this sounds like something you want, I recommend that you head on over there, hit that back button, and make sure that they get a happy notification email that they have one more backer. Because this is a game that I at this point, it's a pre-order. So why don't you just go pre-order your board game, folks, and give them plenty of logistics headaches to deal with over the next handful of months, which I'm sure they're super excited for. Why not just make those pallets that much heavier? Let's just get it done. So thank you both, Sam and Gwen. It's been great having you guys on the show today.
Thank you so much for having us on. Yeah, we really appreciate it. It's been good talking to you guys.
Yeah, it's really good to talk to you both.
No problem. So, everybody out there, we'd like to thank you for listening to Engage, a Family Gaming podcast this week. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed recording it. But before we go, I do have one favor to ask. This is a simple favor, if you will. I bet everyone listening knows one person that might like to hear this podcast that doesn't download it regularly. So, here's what I'd like you to do. If you could, share this with them in whatever way is feasible. Perhaps send them an email, text them. I don't really care how you do it. But if everybody that listens to this podcast every week just finds one more person that they think would be down with listening to a podcast about games that families can play together, if we keep doing that, the sky's the limit for our audience, and a bigger audience means bigger things. You know how that stuff works. So please do so if you could, and maybe join the Engage Family Gaming community at engagefamilygaming.com/community, as Sam did earlier on today, and I know because I approved it. And so because we'd love to have more people in there too, talking about games and just having all sorts of fun. So that is my ask for this week. So I stand with hat in hand, hoping that you would be willing to do so. Thank you very much in advance. So this has been episode 130, lady and gentlemen. So thank you, all three of you, for joining me on this wild ride. And for those of you listening, have a great week. We'll see you next week for some video game time. And in the meantime, don't forget to get your family game on. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Engage, a family gaming podcast. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week.